In terms of designing rigorous units of study, we began in August up here in unpacking standards to create targets, then moved into organizing targets into scales. January and February really focused in on this notion of planning for assessment. Now in March, we're entering into this notion of arranging targets in lesson clusters. So I wanted to take some time to show you an example of how I process this with my research scale. So I took the research scale that I created for a 12th grade English class. I chose three standards here, RI7, W7, and W8. Unpacked them to create a scale of learning targets. So here I paid close attention to the taxonomy, in particular the mental processes. That new column in the taxonomy that we've been using that defines the mental processes has really cleared up a lot of things for me in terms of what constitutes analysis versus comprehension, and possibly what mental process, what the differences are between, say, matching and specifying and generalizing. So I've got my scale here, and as I started looking through my scale, most times when I create my scale, it's pretty linear. In other words, I arrange my targets when I'm done from most simple to complex and pretty much in the order that I want to teach them in. So if I'm in a classroom and I have my scale up, I've seen a lot of teachers just kind of use an arrow, and with each arrow, they go up the scale. So for me, I started thinking about what standards or targets am I going to group together in lessons. So here I've just kind of color-coded. Sometimes I've seen people use alpha codes. For me, it was pretty linear because I arrange my progressions this way anyway. So yellow follow green, blue, purple, red, up into my learning goal target. Other people may not have this kind of organization system within their scales, and it may not look this way. So what I've done is I've thought about the lesson clusters. So I know that I want kids to create a research question on a topic that's applicable to research. So that's going to be one lesson for me that I'm going to probably have span over 1.5 days. I know that this is a tough one, and I'm probably going to have to revisit it the deeper we go in. But in terms of direct instruction, I'm going to spend about 1.5 days on this, and that's probably the first thing I'm going to do with this scale. Over here, I just have some products that I'm going to have kids creating ongoing throughout the research unit, somewhat unobtrusive for me in terms of these are just resources that kids are going to use. Obtrusive maybe a little bit more with the conferring, where I'm going to sit down with individual groups of kids and really talk through their research with them. So here you can see I combine these three targets into one lesson. This may take a day. I know that narrow or broaden research when needed. I'm probably going to be revisiting that a lot of times. So here what I might do, now that I think about it, is I know that once we get kids down into here, that it's going to change a little bit. Pardon me in my copy and paste. So I want to revisit that target there, I think. So just going through even this second time, I'm seeing things that I possibly want to revisit as I go through. So as you can see, I kind of got a progression from simple to complex, whereas in lesson cluster 6, I've got these three learning goal targets where I want students to end with this, and some things I'm going to do. One of the things you see here is Socratic seminar. That could be construed as an activity, but I think an activity can be an assessment. I'm really going to try to teach elaborating on what's learned, determining central ideas in terms of direct instruction through Socratic seminar. So I may be pulling up some common documents that all students will read and really teach and have kids articulate to me their understanding on how to elaborate on what they're learning through text, how they're determining central ideas. Also, looking at this notion of evaluating multiple sources, assessing strengths and limitations of multiple sources, and synthesizing multiple sources to create a unified whole, I think can be done very authentically within Socratic Seminar. Deeply read a piece of text, deeply talk about a piece of text, deeply write about a piece of text through these lenses. So that's an example of how I've taken my scale, created some lesson clusters, and then organized those clusters into a sequence that made sense for me. Thank you.